I never imagined I'd be burying my daughter at the age of 5. No parent should. Yet there I stood, beneath the gray sky, in front of a tiny casket draped in lilies. Lily's favorite. The wind was sharp, but not as sharp as the silence beside me. Where a mother should have stood, there was only emptiness. My wife, Vanessa, was nowhere to be found. She had claimed she was attending a critical business summit in New York, too important to miss. I had believed her. Grief clouds logic. But my trust shattered when my phone buzzed during the service. A single image, crisp and cruel, appeared on my screen. Vanessa, on a yacht in Santorini, her tanned body wrapped in a red bikini, her champagne glass mid-toast, and her hand casually resting on the chest of a man I didn't recognize, though his arrogant smile told me everything I needed to know. Beneath the photo, a message. Thought you should know where your wife really is. A friend. The world tilted. Not just from the betrayal, but from the timing. Our daughter's eulogy wasn't even over. I was about to speak when I received proof that while I mourned Lily, Vanessa was celebrating her freedom. My hands trembled as I shoved the phone into my pocket. For a moment, I thought I might collapse, but then my mother's hand gripped mine, grounding me in place. I forced myself forward, shoulders back, jaw clenched. This funeral wasn't for Vanessa. It was for Lily, and I would not let my pain or Vanessa's betrayal overshadow that. But even as I stood at the pulpit and began to speak about Lily's laughter, her love for drawing blue bunnies, and the way she insisted pancakes should be eaten for dinner on Tuesdays, my mind burned with questions. How long had this been going on? How could Vanessa be so cold? And most haunting of all, had she checked out long before Lily left us? I had lost my daughter, but I was just beginning to realize I might have lost my wife long before that. The betrayal didn't settle quietly in my chest. It erupted like a firestorm ripping through whatever was left of my soul. As I stood before Lily's grave, her tiny casket barely reaching my knees, the image of Vanessa lounging on a yacht with another man played on repeat in my mind. It wasn't just an affair. It was abandonment in its purest, cruelest form. She didn't just walk away from me. She walked away from Lily, from the life we had, from the final chance to be a mother when it mattered most. For months leading up to Lily's death, I'd chalk Vanessa's behavior up to grief. The canceled hospital visits, the forgotten bedtime calls during her business trips, the sudden defensiveness when I asked about her schedule. I thought we were grieving differently. But in truth, I was grieving alone, and she was preparing for an escape, a quiet, calculated one. That image wasn't spontaneous. It was premeditated. I clenched my fists in the pew during the funeral, feeling my nails bite into my palms to keep from losing control. Vanessa's absence hadn't gone unnoticed. Small towns feed on silence more than noise, and I could feel the stares piercing me, curious, pitying, judgmental. I could almost hear their murmurs. Where's the mother? How could she not be here? Didn't she love her child? They didn't know. Not yet. But I did. I knew she wasn't grieving. She was sipping champagne under Mediterranean sunlight, tangled in the arms of a man I had never met, while I tried to string together the strength to speak at our daughter's funeral. Every word I said at the altar was for Lily, but underneath each sentence, rage bubbled up, threatening to poison every syllable. I spoke of Lily's courage, her humor, how she used to doodle blue bunnies on the walls with permanent markers and then blame the dog, how she insisted that pancakes should be heart-shaped because love tastes better. Every word carved something inside me, but not just from grief, because I realized Vanessa missed all of that. Not just the funeral, not just the last week. She had missed her, the little girl whose smile could light up a hospital room even during chemo. That night back home, the house felt too quiet. Lily's room was untouched, her little shoes still by the door, her blanket still bunched up on the couch where she used to nap. I sat in the living room, the photo still on my phone, the brightness turned down, but the glow still stabbing my eyes. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simmered. My mom tried to console me, bringing in tea I didn't touch. "You're shaking," she whispered again. But it wasn't grief this time. It was fury. Vanessa had done more than cheat. She had made a choice to vanish when the family needed her most. And while she thought I would unravel and disappear in my sorrow, she had underestimated something vital. She thought I was weak. But grief doesn't always break a man. Sometimes it reforges him. I began replaying conversations in my mind. Vanessa's sudden interest in managing Lily's insurance paperwork. The time she insisted she'd handle all the bills herself because I was too distracted. It all came rushing back, not as random moments, but as evidence. She hadn't just cheated emotionally or physically. She had planned something deeper. I knew I couldn't confront her yet, not with just a photo. I needed more. Evidence, patterns, a full understanding of just how far she'd gone. Because this wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about protecting what was left of Lily, and making sure Vanessa never profited from the life she abandoned. The night after Lily's funeral, I couldn't sleep. I wandered the house like a ghost, the silence pressing in like a weight I couldn't shake. My daughter was gone. My wife had vanished, and I was left with nothing but the smell of old flowers and the ache of questions that refused to be silenced. Around 2 a.m., I found myself in Vanessa's home office. She used to keep it meticulously organized, color-coded folders, pristine desk, always spotless. But tonight, it looked different, as if she had packed quickly or left in a rush. There was a folder still sitting on her desk. I opened it slowly, not expecting much, but what I saw inside made my stomach twist. It was an insurance document. The beneficiary line had been changed. At first, I didn't understand. It had my daughter's name in bold, Lily Hamilton. Underneath, in Vanessa's handwriting, she had listed herself as the sole recipient of a $1 million life insurance policy. But what shook me most wasn't that I had been excluded from the benefit. It was the date of the amendment, just 5 weeks before Lily passed. While I was sleeping in hospital chairs and reading bedtime stories through oxygen masks, Vanessa was signing legal documents and making financial moves behind my back. I tore through the drawer, suddenly frantic, my hands shaking with a rage I could no longer contain. I found more receipts, More policies, flight bookings, spa appointments in Oahu, and then, at the bottom of the pile, a hotel confirmation for 2 in Maui, dated exactly 1 day before Lily's funeral. The man from the photo had a name, Brandon. His name showed up on the flight details and even as a secondary contact on Vanessa's private banking account. She hadn't just run off with a lover. She had funded the entire getaway with money meant to honor Lily's life. I collapsed into the desk chair, the files scattered around me like the wreckage of my marriage. My brain pulsed with disbelief, then horror. What kind of mother does that? What kind of person looks at their child's death and sees a financial opportunity? And then, like a tidal wave crashing through me, I understood. She had been planning this. Not in a day, not in a week, for months. I remembered Lily's 4th birthday. Vanessa had been cold that day, blaming it on work stress. But now I realized she hadn't even bought the gift. She'd given me a receipt to handle it. Every smile she had given Lily, every hug in those last few months, it had all been a performance, a mask. I couldn't sit still. I needed answers. I called Vanessa's old assistant Mallory under the pretense of locating a missing document. Mallory had always liked me, trusted me. When I asked if Vanessa had mentioned any insurance documents or a special travel, she hesitated. Then, in a low voice, she said, "Mr. Hamilton, I shouldn't be saying this, but she took a call with a man named Brandon in front of me a few weeks ago. She said, 'The payout's coming. Just wait. I'll be yours completely.'" Payout. Yours. Completely. The words were poison, seeping into every memory I had of my wife. And in that moment, I knew. I wasn't just dealing with betrayal. I was dealing with manipulation, deceit, and something bordering on sociopathy. By the next day, I had filed a formal request for full access to Lily's insurance claim. What I found confirmed everything. Vanessa had removed me as a co-beneficiary without my knowledge. She had forged signatures and even taken out a small loan against the payout weeks before Lily's final hospitalization. It was clear she had no intention of using the money for Lily's medical expenses or honoring her memory. The funds were transferred to an offshore account, cleverly disguised through shell business names. She wasn't coming back. She never intended to. And now, with the evidence in hand, I had a choice: crumble or fight. I chose the latter. Because this wasn't just about money. This was about a child's legacy, about the twisted nerve of a woman who used her daughter's death as a financial launchpad to paradise. She thought I was broken, and she was right. But in the cracks, something else had begun to grow. Resolve. The very next morning, I received a call that would change the course of everything. "Hi, is this Nathan Hamilton?" A calm, cautious voice asked. "Yes." "Who is this?" "My name is Camille Rhodes. I think we have something in common, your wife and my ex-boyfriend." My breath caught. "Brandon?" She chuckled bitterly. "So, you've seen the photo?" Camille was sharp, direct, and surprisingly calm for someone who had just admitted to being entangled in the same mess. She explained that Brandon had been her partner for over 3 years until one night she noticed him acting unusually generous, buying expensive things and talking about starting fresh. He never mentioned Vanessa by name, but when she found flight confirmations, hotel bookings, and oddly phrased emails to someone listed as V, everything started to unravel. I didn't believe it at first, but then I saw a photo of Vanessa and Brandon on Instagram, briefly posted by one of his friends during their Maui trip. He deleted it within minutes, That's when I knew. I was stunned silent. Camille wasn't just reaching out to warn me, she had come prepared. "I have everything," she continued. "Screenshots, audio recordings, voice memos of Brandon talking about the insurance money and how Vanessa promised him half once the house sells. They're planning to buy a villa in Mykonos." It felt surreal. While I was mourning Lily and wading through funeral logistics, they were sipping cocktails and discussing beachfront property in Greece. "What do you want?" I asked. "Revenge," she simply said. "But more than that, I want the truth to come out, and I want them both to pay." And so, our unlikely alliance began. Camille emailed everything she had. Texts showing Vanessa admitting she altered a few documents, recordings of Brandon bragging about the sucker husband who still doesn't know what hit him, and even screenshots of property listings Vanessa had bookmarked on a real estate platform for luxury European homes. I forwarded everything to my attorney, Marcus Delgado. Marcus was an old friend from law school days, smart, strategic, and cold when he needed to be. When he heard the story, he didn't waste time. "We'll file a motion to freeze all joint assets immediately, and I want a court order to review every insurance document your wife signed after your daughter's diagnosis." Within 48 hours, Marcus had submitted motions and injunctions. He warned me not to contact Vanessa directly. He said, "Let her bury herself in silence. We're going to dismantle her story one lie at a time." Camille and I stayed in constant contact. We were both broken in different ways, but we shared a purpose now. One evening, she told me, "I used to believe in redemption. Now I just want accountability." Her words rang in my head, because this wasn't just about money anymore, or betrayal. It was about legacy. Lily's legacy. The next week, Vanessa's lawyer reached out, completely unaware of what we had uncovered. They suggested a clean divorce and equal asset split, citing emotional hardship on Vanessa's part. I nearly laughed. Instead, Marcus delivered a file so thick it needed a rubber band. He called it Exhibit A through Z. It included every text, every forged document, every bank transfer, even the audio of Vanessa saying, "Nathan's too busy grieving to notice." And then we did something I never thought I'd have the strength to do. We took the battle public. Not in a tabloid, but through legal filings that became part of the court's open records. Marcus ensured that every deception was laid bare. This wasn't just about protecting my assets. It was about stripping away the fake smiles Vanessa had worn for years and letting the world see the woman behind them. Friends started calling. Extended family, shocked and supportive. Even Lily's former nurses reached out, heartbroken. One of them said something I'll never forget. "She left during Lily's final breath, but you stayed. That's who Lily will remember." Camille and I watched from the sidelines as Vanessa's web began to collapse. Brandon was served with a deposition notice. His smug confidence didn't hold up when we froze the bank account they had been siphoning funds into. He tried to backpedal, throwing Vanessa under the bus in exchange for leniency. Vanessa's voice messages, once casual and cunning, now sounded desperate. But it was too late. She thought I would fall apart. Instead, I built something unbreakable, piece by piece, with truth, proof, and a quiet fury she never saw coming. The courtroom was colder than I remembered, not because of the temperature, but because of what it had come to represent: betrayal, judgment, and finally, truth. Vanessa sat across from me, her once meticulously styled hair tied back in a rushed bun, makeup barely concealing the panic in her eyes. It was the first time she looked as stripped down as I had felt for months. The judge entered, stern and unreadable. Cameras weren't allowed,
but I could feel the weight of invisible eyes. Family, friends, neighbors, even Camille sat quietly behind me, offering moral support. Everyone knew the story now. The husband who buried his daughter while his wife sipped cocktails in Greece with her lover. But this wasn't about gossip anymore. This was about justice. Vanessa's attorney tried one last time to twist the narrative. "Your Honor, Mrs. Hamilton was grieving. People process loss differently. The emotional strain led her to make decisions that, while regrettable, were not malicious in nature." I stared at the table, jaw clenched. Marcus leaned forward. "Permission to respond, Your Honor?" he asked. The judge nodded. Marcus stood, calm but lethal. "Your Honor, the facts before this court do not reflect grief. They reflect calculation. Forged documents, diversion of life insurance funds, deceptive financial transfers, abandonment of both marital and parental responsibility. And all of it premeditated, documented, and connected to a clear attempt to siphon assets while our client mourned the loss of their child." The room went still. Vanessa didn't look up. Her hands were balled into fists in her lap, the same hands that once brushed Lily's hair back after chemo, the same hands that signed away our home. The judge spoke slowly but firmly. "This court finds the evidence to be overwhelming. The defense's argument of emotional distress is insufficient in the face of deliberate fraud and moral abandonment. Full ownership of the estate will be granted to Mr. Hamilton. Furthermore, all life insurance payouts not already dispersed shall be frozen and redirected to a third-party charitable trust as proposed, the Lily Reynolds Foundation for Childhood Cancer Support." I closed my eyes for just a moment. Relief didn't rush in. It crept slowly, like the tide easing in after a storm. The judge continued, "Any further claims by Mrs. Hamilton regarding shared assets are hereby denied due to her proven breach of fiduciary trust." Court adjourned. The gavel fell. Vanessa's mouth opened as if to protest, but no words came. Her lawyer didn't even try to console her. She had walked into that courtroom with the arrogance of someone who believed she could outmaneuver the truth. She walked out stripped of everything: her reputation, her comfort, her schemes. And me? I walked out with nothing material, but everything meaningful. The truth had been laid bare. My daughter's memory was intact, no longer muddied by her mother's betrayal. The home we built would remain in the family, and the money meant to be stolen for selfish escapes would now fund hospital stays, rent relief, and therapy sessions for families enduring what I once did. Camille met me on the courthouse steps. "It's over," she said simply. I nodded. For her, maybe. For Lily, it's just beginning. Later that week, I signed the final paperwork for the foundation. We launched it in Lily's name on what would have been her 7th birthday. The first donation went to the hospital where she spent her final weeks. I visited the pediatric wing and left a basket filled with Lily's favorite things: penguin plushies, coloring kits, and strawberry lip balm. As I stood near the nurse's station, a little girl tugged on my jacket. "Are you the penguin man?" she asked with a smile. I knelt down, handed her one of the toys, and nodded. "No," I said, "but someone very special used to be." I didn't just fight to win. I fought so Lily's story wouldn't end with betrayal, but with light, with healing, with purpose. And Vanessa? She vanished into the margins of town gossip. No job, no home, no trust left to manipulate. The community that once smiled at her now whispered. But I didn't chase that revenge. I didn't need to. Because true recognition doesn't come from watching your enemies fall. It comes from rising on your own, with dignity, with quiet strength, and with a love that outlives even the deepest pain.
Every chapter of this story, every tear, every confrontation, every sleepless night was written with pain, but it ends with peace. Not because the scars have vanished, but because I've learned to live with them. My journey began in heartbreak, at the foot of a small white casket. It spiraled through rage, through betrayal, and through nights when I wasn't sure I'd make it through the next sunrise. But somehow, I did. When Vanessa left for Greece with her lover on the day of Lily's funeral, she thought I would crumble. When she forged my name to sell the house, she believed I was too broken to fight. When her parents joined her scheme, they underestimated my love, not just for Lily, but for the truth. But I didn't break. I rose. I found allies in unexpected places, my mother, whose quiet strength kept me grounded, and Mia, the ex-girlfriend of Vanessa's lover, who risked everything to expose the truth. And I uncovered not just betrayal, but a network of deceit so deep it nearly erased everything we had built. And still, I stood. We didn't just stop the house sale. We froze the accounts, filed the lawsuits, and exposed every lie. I created a foundation in Lily's name, the Lily Reynolds Foundation, to help other families battling childhood cancer. It's not just about money. It's about turning pain into purpose. The house is safe. The money is helping those who truly need it. And Lily's memory? It's no longer tied to betrayal. It's tied to legacy. Every time a child receives care through the foundation, Lily's spirit lives on. Every time a father finds the courage to speak up against injustice, I hope they know they're not alone. So hold on, push through. Your justice may not come quickly, but it will come. And when it does, you'll realize it wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming your life, your voice, and your future. If this story moved you, please leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your pain, your victories. We're in this together. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a story of truth, justice, and redemption. You're stronger than you think, just like I was.